I had a conversation with a polygynist, has 6 wives in Australia. Casey, I've mentioned this before. He's of the position that it doesn't really matter because all women go through a hoe phase, and that he's mentioned that he's found that women that were virgins when he got with them, often, no matter how good he is to them in all realms, whether it's in the bedroom or in life in general, taking care of her, will at some point step out because they haven't had any other experience. Funny argument that he made was something along the lines of, what did he say? Oh, if his D is so good, then this guy's D must be better. So let's go and explore. So that's one angle that I've heard. That's not been my experience, and that's not what the data suggests. The research that's been done on marriage and men and women sticking together to raise kids over a long period of time is pretty clear. Women that have a large notch count and started accumulating notches younger in life. So let's use 2 examples. Becky, who started accumulating notches at 14, and when you meet her in her late 30s or in her late 20s or 30, let's just call it, she's accumulated a notch count into 3 or 4 figures maybe, is less desirable than a woman that started to accumulate notches at 23 and was only with 2 guys. The data on this seems pretty clear. It's obvious that that marriages, if you're going to use marriage as a yardstick, are more prolonged and of higher quality when a woman hasn't been the village bicycle. The percentage of your chance of having a divorce and her leaving, and women initiate them 70 to 80% of the time still, by the way. Women still get 70 to 80% of the custody orders. The vast majority of wealth flows from the father to the mother. So if you're going to take on the risk of all this, I don't think that you want to do it with a chick that's got a large notch count. The argument that makes the most sense to me is if you're going to have a disagreement and she's been with 100 guys, what's going to stop her from saying, well, F this guy, I'll just go to 101, right? Because she's conditioned. She's used to moving from guy to guy. There's not a lot holding her to the guy. So I think that purity matters. It's one of the things that I think that you should vet for. You're not going to get an honest answer. You're not going to be able to sit her down and be like, okay, so tell me, how many guys have you been with, sort of thing. You have to establish it through lifestyle. Was she with one guy for her entire 20s when you met her at 30? Okay. If that's the case, chances are it's probably just a very low notch count, like 1 or 2. Okay. If there's a total absence of a long-term relationship in her 20s, and she spent it traveling Europe, backpacking Asia, through Australia, working on cruise ships, traveling around the country, you look at her social media, and every photograph is of her traveling to a different place, sitting in front of a plate of food that she probably didn't pay for, that looks rather expensive, on yachts, on private jets and exotic cars. She's been around the block. You kind of establish it through lifestyle. Some guys will be like, oh, well, just ask her and then double or triple the number. Okay, fine. That's one way to do it. The bottom line is her past matters to you because your future matters to her. Am I going to be able to preside and protect and provide? Good. I'm glad that you see that as valuable to you because it is valuable. But did you, and I want to know her past, did you run around? Did you share your body with a lot of dudes? Because that's not desirable for a whole bunch of reasons. There's some really, really weird and disgusting things that have been researched and studied and proposed, which I'm not even going to get into. They've done fruit fly studies on this sort of stuff where it's like they found DNA in the bodies of the females that wasn't from the father or anybody else. It's just guys that she spent time with. And again, this study hasn't been replicated in humans yet, but you see a lot of the guys on the interwebs using that argument to dissuade you, obviously, from that. And whether it's true or not, I don't know. But there's a canary in the coal mine there. The other note that I have here is you want to stay away from the alpha widows. If she has an attachment to a guy from her past. Uh, okay, so here's an interesting stat. When they survey women in marriages, 50% of women in marriages admit to having a backup plan. Now, let's just paint a picture here. You're a woman, you're married, you've taken vows, you have his children now. Why do you have a backup plan? Why would you admit to having a backup plan? It's an interesting question because 50% of women admit to having a backup plan. Having a backup plan is duplicitous, it's deceitful. The guys generally don't know that she has a backup plan. She's generally not exercising a backup plan. The backup plan is usually an ex-boyfriend, a friend, a work husband maybe. What else do they call? Even gay guys sometimes too. You know, they'll be like there's a lot of dudes that will use what's called sneaky fucker game to sort of like get into a woman's orbit. And there's any number of ways to do it. They can play the friend zone. They can do any number of things. This is very common through much of the animal kingdom, actually. There's a lot of sneaky fucker game out there where like males will sort of sneak into the female sort of zone. And usually they pretend to be a female or they'll disguise themselves somehow. Very, very interesting stuff when you get into the animal kingdom and how this deception sort of works. I think it's covered in The Evolution of Desire by David Buss, so you can learn more about it there. But you don't want her having a backup plan. You don't want her having a connection to any guys from her past, especially guys that she pined for, that she failed to lock down. The definition of an alpha widow is a guy that she was either with or wanted in her past, but was unable to secure him, and he got away. And she constantly holds a place in her head and her heart for this guy. How is she going to be committed to you and raising your kids if she's an alpha widow? You understand, right? The chances of her being an alpha widow are going to be higher if she's been with more guys, right? That's one of the reasons why I think purity is important. It's one of the reasons why throughout history it was so important. And for some reason today, it's not. We just tend to look the other way because we've been told to look the other way, and it doesn't matter, which I think is bullshit. I think that's really bad advice. So there's that. We talked about alpha widows. The ability for other guys to imprint on her exists. That's another one of the problems when she's been the Village Bicycle and spent a lot of time with a lot of dudes. Women are far more likely to want to be with you over a long-term basis and work through problems if, again, she hasn't been imprinted on by other guys, if she hasn't been alpha widowed, she hasn't been the Village Bicycle. So contemplate all of those things.